Finally today, for producers looking to plant late-season alfalfa, the time to do so is now. Depending on where you are in the state, mid-August to mid-September is usually the best time for establishing new alfalfa stands. However, planting now can be a bit riskier compared to waiting until the spring. I spoke with Nebraska Extension's Megan Taylor about what you should consider.
So it's always been kind of I don't want to say controversial, but the spring versus fall planting for alfalfa, it's always such a hard decision because some of those fall planted stands are the best stands you'll ever see, but also some of the worst stands you'll ever see. And really the biggest thing is that moisture and weed pressure and timing are the really three key elements when it comes to establishing in fall. So we need at least 6 weeks before the hard frost for us to get that alfalfa up and out of the ground and growing, for it to actually be able to make it through winter successfully. And then moisture here in Nebraska, it's been so spotty. There's some areas where too much and some areas where there's too little. If we plant and it's dry, it's going to be really hard to, again, get it up and out of the ground quickly and efficiently. And then weed pressure is also one of the things we really want to think about, because if you're primarily focused on winter annuals and you didn't get any fall spraying, or you weren't really able to control those weeds before you planted, they're just going to be a habitual problem. And once you have the alfalfa established, if it's not Roundup ready, it kind of limits those options for you when it comes to doing some post spraying when alfalfa is either greening up or in the spring, or you could have a little bit of damage. And it just really limits your options in terms of herbicide control.
What are some problems we can run into if there isn't enough moisture when planting the alfalfa?
So the big thing is that you're just not going to get germination, because we really need water to imbibe that seed for it to actually start the growth process. The other thing with it being really dry is that, even if you plant it and your stand doesn't look super great, you can get hard seed. And if that hard seed would get moisture over the winter or early spring, it could still germinate. So that's why with fall planting, the stand may look really, really rough, but then in spring, it could bounce back, but that's a big could bounce back kind of a deal.
You mentioned weeds. Can you tell us how they factor in when making these planting decisions?
I would say just weed control is one of those deals where, with a perennial crop, we really, really want to make sure that we are taking care of those weeds, because alfalfa is very competitive, but we want to give it its best opportunity to get established. And that first year is so critical when it comes to maintenance of that weed pressure.
Any reminders that you'd like to give us about soil or field preparations if one is deciding on planting alfalfa this time of year?
So when you're deciding to plant this time of year, again, with Nebraska, since we have such a wide range of climates, one of the things to double check before going out is, if you're in the northern portion of Nebraska, it's getting pretty tight. We may have already passed the time where it's probably safe, might be still kind of risky. But here in the central portion or like southeast portion, you have up until September 15th. The big thing is you want to try to remove those weeds using like Roundup, or use a product, burn it down, and then from there a little bit of tillage sometimes is recommended, because that can handle some of those glyphosate resistant weeds. Also, University of Wisconsin shows that tillage and herbicide combined actually have the best seed bed preparation. And then you're going to want to go through and you're going to want to roll it, because it has to be fairly packed. So in Indiana, we always say you should be able to bounce a basketball off of it. So maybe in Nebraska, it's a football, but that needs to be fairly well packed before you actually go in and plant that alfalfa.
One additional note, Megan says most insect pressure with alfalfa is in season. Potato leafhoppers, alfalfa weevils, and blister beetles have been some of the main culprits this year, something to keep an eye out for.